countries, and the Commission stands ready to continue coordinating this assistance. For further information, you can check our press release and our daily news.
Thank you very much. Myriam, voilà pour nos annonces d'aujourd'hui. Je vous invite maintenant à poser vos questions. Florian? You have to wait until it's red.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. Florian Neuhan, ZDF German Television. A question on the water shortage in some member states and the guidelines you published 2 days ago. Could you first state how the Commission evaluates the situation among European countries with regard to water shortage? And secondly, what was the scope and the intention behind those guidelines with regard to the reuse of water?
A question for Adalbert.
Thank you very much, Florian. So in terms of our evaluation of the situation, I think it's probably best if we get back to our experts and get back to you on the specifics of where we stand right now, also in cooperation with my colleague Miriam, who's dealing with agriculture, and that way we can give you a fuller picture. When it comes to these specific guidelines, this is the outcome of work that has been going on with the member states for a while. The idea is that in order to be able to reuse urban wastewater for irrigation, it is necessary to have a certain amount of standards in order to ensure safety of such use. And this is why the Commission has come forward with pretty detailed guidance on how best to do it. Of course, in the current situation, it is something that's particularly worth considering given the existing water shortages, but it's not a piece of guidance that we have given specifically in this context. It is part of our ongoing work on the security of our agriculture and best possible use of water resources.
Florian, you have a follow-up?
Yes, please. So to understand correctly, did you publish these guidelines ahead of time because of the current situation? Did you change something because of the current situation? And could you just again restate what is the main essence of those guidelines? What is your message to the member states?
I cannot give you a specific reason for the timing of these guidelines. We work on all of our technical work as rapidly as we possibly can. So, of course, they do happen to be extremely timely right now, but they were simply published when they were ready. And this is not a political document that is meant to send a specific message to member states as such. It is something that is meant to help them and help all the relevant stakeholders conduct these activities in a safe way. But of course, the message when it comes to water use in general is that it is an extremely precious resource, more and more so as the impacts of climate change are being felt. And it is extremely important that we use water responsibly and that we do it in a way that is safe, complying with all the necessary sanitary standards.
Thank you, Adalbert. Any other questions on this issue? No? Okay, we move to other issues. Yes, please.
Bernd Rieger, Deutsche Welle. I have a question on the coal embargo. I'm not sure who's in charge. Is it also Adalbert? Okay. No? The coal embargo kicks in next week, and I was just wondering, how does the Commission monitor or check if this coal embargo is implemented? Do you have any indications if all member states are adhering to this embargo?
Thank you very much. Well, as a general principle, let me remind you that it is for the member states to implement the sanctions, since those sanctions have been decided by them. So this is an extremely important point. But for the rest, I give the floor to Ariana.
Indeed, thanks for the question, and absolutely correct what Eric is saying. I can confirm that an import ban on all forms of Russian coal was agreed in April by the EU as part of the fifth package of restrictive sanctions against Russia. The 10th of August is the end of the wind-down period for the import of Russian coal, and no further exemption will apply, as is laid down in the regulation. Of course, as Eric was saying, ensuring effective implementation of sanctions is primarily a responsibility of the Member States. The Commission remains fully committed to working with them on sanctions implementation, ensuring a consistent approach across the European Union.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on on sanctions? Yes, please. Need to press the button first, and then wait until it's red.
Thank you very much. Alex Kelly from Future Story News. Just on coal specifically, how does the uptake in coal across member states fit into the Commission's kind of European Green Deal commitments, and how does that fit with balancing your commitment to being carbon neutral by 2050?
Look, this is a question that has been raised here many, many different times, and it is clear that in our Repower EU plan, we have said, and the President has reiterated this numerous times, that we stay committed entirely to our objective of climate neutrality by 2050, and that in fact the Russian invasion of Ukraine, paradoxically, is going to help us speed up our move away from fossil fuels in general and from Russian fossil fuels in particular. Now, that is going to be done, for example, by energy savings. That is going to be done by the build-up in renewables. That is going to be done by energy efficiency. However, in the context that we are in, it can be legitimate for short transitory periods of time to use coal if no other options are available. So this has been laid out black on white in our different documents on this issue. Any other questions on sanctions? Florian.
Thank you. Could you again explain, please, what happens if there's a violation of the coal embargo after Wednesday, and how is the Commission monitoring this exactly? Thank you.
I would not want to speculate on something that has not happened yet, actually, because as I was saying, this obligation kicks in as of the 10th. It's for the member states to implement the sanctions. Right now, I'd have no doubt that they will implement the sanctions, so we will, of course, be in touch with them, as we are always in touch on everything that relates to the sanction packages adopted so far, and I would leave it at that for the time being.
I mean, Florian, these are decisions which have been taken unanimously in Council. Okay? So you expect that the member states will obviously implement the decisions that they have taken themselves. Of course, we will continue to monitor the situation, but we have no doubt that the member states will implement these decisions since they are part of a very coherent strategy vis-à-vis Russia when it comes to fossil fuels, which have been laid out in a whole series of documents, as I have just said before. Any other questions on sanctions? I see hands raised in the chat. Please only keep your hand raised if your questions relate to sanctions. And the first one who had raised his hand was Lukasz. So Lukasz, we go to you.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Piński from Polish press agency. My question is connected to the sanctions. I would like to ask about this turbine for Nord Stream 2, because this issue is really. The Gazprom argues that it cannot bring this repair turbine to Nord Stream 1. Without the assurance from the European Union that repair and transport of such a device will not be subjected to sanctions introduced in the connection with the war in Ukraine. So I would like to know whether you are in any talks with the German side, with the Russian side, and you can say something about the issue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I can start replying and then perhaps I don't know if my colleagues want to complement. What I can say is that the EU sanctions regime does not affect goods or technology linked to the industrial transport of natural gas into EU, nor is Nord Stream 1 subject to any sanctions. So from our perspective, there's nothing in the sanctions that affects the repatriation of the turbine.
Let me rephrase that slightly, Ayala. It's not from our perspective. There is nothing in the sanctions that prohibits the turbine that is the Siemens turbine that is currently meant to go to Russia to go there. Anything else that is being said on the issue is purely and simply wrong. Okay? So this has been made extremely clear. And anything that the Russians are saying on this is basically an excuse not to provide gas to the European Union. We have said here on the podium, the President has said in many instances, as have other members of the College, that of course there is blackmail on the side of Russia when it comes to the supply of energy to the European Union. So this is just an excuse. Okay, any other questions on sanctions? Ekrem, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Eric. Can you please define a certain period of time when you were asked about the use of coal-fired power plants? You said certain period of time about the coal-fired power plants. What do you mean exactly? Until the end of March, or as long as it takes, depending on how much you gas will have for the, not even this winter, but the 2023-24?
Yeah, thank you. I think my comment, I need to double check this exactly, but I'm speaking under the control of Adalbert, who can step in if he wants, but this is done in the context of the plan that we have put forward to save gas for a safe winter, which, as you know, is time limited. So it is in that context that you need to understand the comments that I have made. Then, of course, as the plan says, there is a mechanism, a group, the energy security that focuses on energy security, in which member states and the European Commission will discuss, monitor the situation, and decide what needs to be done. But for the moment, this is limited, as you know, to the period of time which is set out in the communication on safe gas for a safe winter. Christian.
Oui, en fait, je voudrais revenir sur les sanctions et cette phrase que tu as dite. Les Russes, c'est une excuse pour ne pas fournir de gaz à l'Union européenne et il y a du chantage. Alors ma question est simple. Quand est-ce que l'Union européenne et est-ce qu'à la Commission européenne, vous avez préparé un momentum où on va sanctionner le gaz? Et pas sanctionner le gaz, mais sanctionner Gazprom, Gazprom Bank, le patron de Gazprom, qui en fait, moyennant l'absence de sanctions européennes, peut continuer à vendre du gaz un petit peu partout dans d'autres pays. Le jour où il est déswifté, Gazprom Bank devient une banque comme toutes les autres, ne peut plus agir sur les marchés, et là il y a une vraie sanction. Est-ce qu'on diffère ces sanctions parce qu'on essaie de faire le plein des réserves pour l'hiver, ou est-ce que le momentum est enfin arrivé pour la rentrée? Merci.
Merci de ta question, Christian. La politique de l'Union européenne, en ce qui concerne les sanctions, a été définie de manière très claire. C'est un processus qui dépend des circonstances. Nous avons adopté différents paquets de sanctions en fonction des événements sur le terrain, avec comme objectif de maintenir une pression constante sur la Russie tout au long de la durée de ce conflit. En ce qui concerne l'énergie, l'Union européenne a adopté un certain nombre de décisions qui concernent différents types d'énergie fossile russe. Tu le sais aussi bien que moi, il s'agit du charbon et du pétrole. Le gaz n'est pas sur la table et nous ne spéculerons pas sur des possibles paquets de sanctions à venir ou non. Donc voilà la situation dans laquelle nous sommes et je n'ai rien d'autre à rajouter sur le sujet pour le moment. Merci. Ekrem, you still have a question on sanctions?
Eric, I'm not certain whether it's how can I separate it? For me, it's linked sanctions and energy at the same time. What should I do?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Ekrem.
He doesn't know if it's about energy.
Oh, okay. Your question. Well, just go ahead.
Okay. Let's start with A, sanctions. Yeah, I'm happy that I can make somebody laugh today. You are sanctioning Mr. Putin and all his cronies, including the chief of Gazprom. But you are still buying his gas. What's the logic behind here? What's the effect of sanctioning? Yes, we need your gas because we don't want to freeze during the winter, especially Germans. Perhaps here in Belgium, we are not so concerned because 3 or 4% how much Belgium buys from. Come on, can somebody explain to me, and those who are not, qui ne osent pas être francs aussi que moi, what's the effect of sanctions? You are about to indict a criminal and all his criminals around, and you are still paying him billions per day. Sorry if I'm intemperate, but I'm coming from a country who knows what the war crimes are. If you allowed me, I can go back to 30 years ago, but let's wait for another day. I really apologize that I'm getting out of my portfolio of journalists, but come on, we are humans, huh?
Thank you, Ekrem. First of all, we all understand the difficult situation, the seriousness of the situation that we are all in, and the emotions that you mentioned are perfectly legitimate. But there is a principle that Peter has had the opportunity of reminding us all of a certain number of times, and it is that sanctions are meant to hurt your opponent more than they hurt you. You need to remember that the European Union is carrying out a strategy in this conflict, in this brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia, that is based on different pillars, not just sanctioning Russia. Sanctioning Russia is an essential pillar, but it's not the only one. Another fundamental pillar is supporting Ukraine. And in order to support Ukraine, you have to have a strong European Union, a European Union which is able to withstand the pressure that is being exercised by Russia on different fronts. And therefore, our sanctions are always calibrated in such a way that they have maximum impact on Russia whilst trying to limit the effects on the European Union. And it is in that context that we have set out the different sets of sanctions progressively, and why we have sanctioned certain types of energy and not others. It's very, very clear, and we've never been shy about saying this. You need to remember that it's not for nothing that we have presented REPowerEU, Save Gas for a Safe Winter, that the President and commissioners have been traveling to find alternative supplies of gas for the European Union, that we have passed legislation, that we have proposed legislation which has been passed in record time by the Member States in order to set targets for the filling up of our reserves, of the gas storage that we have in the European Union. We need energy in the European Union for next winter. Gas is part of that. And we need to make sure that we have sufficient gas so that our economies keep running, that our households can continue to be heated or cooled as it would be now in the summer, and that overall we are in the best possible position to support Ukraine. I think it makes things very, very clear. Ekrem, you still have your hand raised. I'll give you one last follow-up.
Ask questions, so here I come with my hurricane of questions. I appreciate everybody's concern in EU capitals and governments. They are protecting us so great. In terms personally, me and my 100 neighbors, we have here in Jet a small wood, so we will certainly not freeze, and we will nobody die, I believe, in Europe if Mr. Putin cuts the gas from now until 31 of March. But there are a lot of people dying and children in Ukraine, so thanks a lot to all prime ministers for protecting me and not allowing me to freeze next winter.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment, Ekrem. Are there other questions on sanctions? I do not see any other questions for Ariana while she is on the podium. On the economy more generally? No? Hold on. So, is it on the economy? So, hold on. I see that there are two hands raised in the chat on the economy, so we go there. Peter.
About economy, it's a question concerning the macro-financial aid for the Ukraine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
But we can almost not hear you. I don't know if we can bring the sound up.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, fine. In his nightly video message, President Zelensky heavily complained about the delay in the transfer of money for the macro-financial aid, reminding that pensioners, poor people, soldiers are waiting for money and cannot be given money very soon anymore. So I've got two questions. The one is, could you please describe the state of play concerning the macro-financial aid from the European Union to the Ukraine? Explain why there's a delay in the payments. And Zelensky also said that he would refrain from naming the countries that are responsible for the delay. So could you please name the countries?
Nice try, Peter. Ariana will give you answers to the other questions.
So it's a question we also took on Monday, so I won't repeat everything I said in that occasion. What I can say is that we have recently paid out the 1 billion that was approved as MFA support to Ukraine. The first tranche of 100 million has been paid on Monday, the second tranche already on Tuesday. So this is money that has arrived to Ukraine. We also approved recently an EIB of over 1 billion, EIB granting of over 1 billion that will be paid out soon in some installments. So this is also a very important contribution to Ukrainian economy. More generally, of course, we have shown our full support to Ukraine, granting over 9.5 billion in the past through different means. We have mobilized this economic, financial, humanitarian and emergency support, as well as military assistance. Of course, I can provide you with the details if needed, but this is the total. As the President has said, we are working on granting a further 8 billion of MFA support to Ukraine. We do intend to come forward with a proposal concerning this remaining amount as soon as possible, in line with the Council mandate we have received. The technical works are continuing. We are in consultation with Member States on the next part of this package. And of course, we give this utmost priority.
Thank you very much. Peter, you still have your hand raised. Follow up.
Thanks. Just a short follow-up. Could you please describe the nature of the technical work that you just mentioned?
Ariana.
As in part what I have explained already on Monday, so I apologize if I repeat myself. We have assessed that Ukraine new exposure to Ukraine should be matched by a loss absorption capacity of 70% to deal with the heightened risk associated with these loans. There is currently no available resources under the current multi-annual budgetary planning. Therefore, we are considering alternative alternative solutions, including the possibility to rely on guarantees provided by member states. This is not the first time that this would happen, as I already explained. We are assessing the validity of the provisioning rate of 70%, and the technical talks are continuing also in coordination with the member states precisely on finding alternative solutions, also possibly through guarantees.
So fundamentally, in order to be able to provide these 8 billion, we need to find sufficient guarantees outside of the EU budget that are provisioned at a high ratio, a ratio of 70%, which is higher than what you would usually have for such guarantees. And this, of course, is something that requires agreement by other sources of financing, be it member states or others. And this is what we are working on. And as you can imagine, it is not necessarily an easy package to conclude. Is it on this? Yes, please. If you could present yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Irina Sommer, news agency Interfax, Ukraine. You said, Ariana, that European Commission trying to find solution as soon as possible. Yesterday, Reuters reported that European Commission want to disburse already this money before September. Can you please confirm or deny this?
I'm afraid I cannot comment further on the timing. What we have disbursed is the 1 billion, as I was mentioning already this week. The EIB part will be disbursed very soon, at least for some of the first tranches. On the rest, the technical talks are continuing, and I'm afraid there's no specific timeline for these talks to be ended. What I can guarantee is that we put maximum efforts in finding a solution as quickly as possible, but I cannot be more precise on the timing.
Any other questions on this? No on other, so now economic issues, since Ariana is on the podium. Paola. Sorry, it's a follow-up on this. Apologies. Go ahead.
No worries. Many thank you for the question. I wanted to check with you if it's technically feasible to present a proposal which doesn't have the backing of all countries. So if you need a guarantee for this 8 billion and there is one country which doesn't want to provide that guarantee, could you go forward and say, okay, anybody else can contribute? It's not obligatory for everybody to contribute guarantees. So I want to know, basically, can you get around Germany's blockage by making a proposal that would exclude guarantees from one or more member countries? Thanks.
Thanks, Ola, but I don't think we will go into this because, as Ariana said, we are looking at various options, one of which is working with the member states. So that is not something that we are going to speculate on at this point in time. You still have your hand raised? Oh.
Yes, I wanted to ask then, what are these other various options?
No, look, yes, I understand, but you will understand that whilst we are doing the internal work, we are not going to be describing every step here in the press room. Okay. Thank you. I see no other questions for Ariana, so I go to Mose. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Eric. In fact, I wanted to ask directly a question to Miriam about her announcement about the reception of patients from Ukraine to hospitals in the EU member states. And I suppose that Miriam was referring to the so-called, let's say, Emergency Response Coordination Center, ERCC. I'm asking because I read in Swedish newspapers that Sweden hasn't received very many patients because of lack of capacity. And now we heard that are there up to 1,000 patients altogether or during the whole period since the war? It was not clear to me. And I would like, first of all, also to ask whether you can have any figures about the distribution of these patients by EU member state. And related to the other question is if this, let's say, coordination center or, let's say, the civilian protection mechanism or any other member state, if they have established, let's say, any field hospitals as a solution inside Ukraine or in neighboring member states? Thank you.
So let's be clear. We're talking about two different things here. There is obviously a lot of support on the humanitarian aid side to Ukraine, including in Ukraine. But what you are talking about here is something different, which is the transfer of patients to the European Union. Miriam.
Yes, so this EU funding responds to an Ukrainian request that in this respect, the European Commission has set up and is funding a dedicated system for intra-European medical evacuations of displaced people in need of medical care, including to EU countries or to one of the countries participating in the EU civil protection mechanism. So the 18 countries that so far have received patients are Germany, France, Ireland, Italy, Denmark, Sweden, Romania, Luxembourg, Belgium, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, Austria, Norway, Lithuania, Finland, Poland, and the Czech Republic.
So Sweden has received some patients.
Yes.
Hold on, you have to wait until it's read.
Yes. In that case, my follow-up question is if you have any figures, some exact figures, how many patients have been received by respective EU member state, because in Sweden, for example, I think the number was very low. It was about 20, 30 patients. Which countries are receiving the most patients from Ukraine?
We can provide you with the figures bilaterally.
Okay.
Jose. Thanks. Okay. I see no further question on this, so I move on to other issues. Christian, tu avais une autre question sur un autre sujet.
En fait, j'ai deux petites questions. La première est plus générale. Il y a un nouveau front qui s'est ouvert avec les tensions avec la Chine dans le détroit de Taïwan. Et je voudrais savoir si l'Union européenne est prête à prendre des dispositions pour, faire face à des ruptures d'approvisionnement, puisque c'est un énorme centre de passage de marchandises, et qu'effectivement on est déjà très engagé pour soutenir l'Ukraine, on en a subi des conséquences, et donc là maintenant on a un deuxième front qui s'est ouvert. Donc je veux savoir comment vous avez préparé. L'autre question, c'est un autre sujet qui est consommation. Merci.
Merci. En fait, c'est une question pour Myriam. Donc, je le rappelle, j'hésiterai quand même à parler de front, langage très militaire, pour une situation qui, nous l'espérons, ne le deviendra jamais. Il s'agit donc d'une question plutôt de politique commerciale et industrielle. Myriam.
Oui, alors on est en train de suivre la situation de très près. C'est peut-être un peu trop pour en tirer des conclusions, mais on est très conscient des conséquences. Et je voudrais aussi ajouter qu'on a eu notre dialogue à haut niveau, notre dialogue économique, le 19 juillet avec la Chine, où le EVP Dobrovskis était présent. Et là, on a parlé déjà des disruptions des chaînes de valeur. C'était pas lié à ces cas-là, mais c'était lié en général, Covid et toutes les crises qu'on a subies les dernières années. Alors c'est quelque chose où on en parle avec la Chine et on essaye aussi de trouver des solutions pour éviter qu'on ait face à des situations comme on a eu dans le passé où on n'avait pas accès à certains produits essentiels à cause précisément de ces crises.
Merci. Je crois que ce que tu viens de dire est très important. La résilience des chaînes de valeur est une thématique qui nous occupe depuis bien avant les événements de ces derniers jours, et qui a été mis en exergue évidemment, notamment par la crise du Covid-19. Et tu sais que c'est un sujet sur lequel nous avons beaucoup travaillé. Il y a beaucoup de dimensions, on ne va pas toutes les rappeler ici. Il y en a une qui est déjà liée au marché intérieur, au fait de s'assurer que, en période de crise, les biens et les services puissent continuer à circuler librement à l'intérieur de l'Union européenne. Ça, c'est la base, puisque c'est le cœur de notre machine économique. Deuxièmement, c'est faire en sorte que dans toute une série de domaines, nous ayons des capacités de production en Europe, un sujet qui est suivi par Sonia en particulier, tous les projets d'intérêt commun européens sur des technologies, toutes les technologies clés. Et puis, récemment, tu te souviendras que nous avons adopté le CHIPS Act, dans un domaine qui touche à une technologie qui est chère à Taïwan et qui vise à s'assurer que l'Union européenne, en quelque sorte, tienne son rang en ce qui concerne la production de semi-conducteurs et notamment des semi-conducteurs de dernière génération. Donc c'est une problématique qui va certainement continuer à structurer notre réflexion et sur laquelle nous allons continuer à travailler, mais effectivement, nous allons suivre en particulier de près s'il y a des conséquences aux tensions actuelles autour des événements Taïwan. Je vois une main levée dans le chat. Je ne sais pas si c'est sur ce sujet. Donc, merci de ne garder votre main levée pour l'instant que si c'est là-dessus. Bartosz, you have a question on this issue.
Hi, this is Bartosz from Politico. No, I don't have a question on this issue. I was hoping to ask about pesticides, so that not related.
Okay, hold on then. Thanks
So
a lot.
maybe
Okay, I see no further question on this, so I go back to Philippe Régnier, who had raised his hand already quite some time ago. Philippe.
Bonjour, merci. Effectivement, j'essayais d'en placer une sur l'Ukraine, mais plus spécifiquement non pas sur les sanctions, mais sur la reprise à petits pas des exportations de céréales. Donc on voit qu'effectivement, au rythme où ça va, ça prendra un certain temps pour évacuer toutes les réserves entreposées dans les 3 ports qui font l'objet de l'accord. Mais je voulais savoir, j'ai cru entendre en tout cas que tout ce qui a été mis en place sous les auspices de la Commission, à savoir ces routes de la solidarité, avait quand même produit des effets intéressants au mois de juillet. Si l'on additionne ce qui a pu être évacué par route, rail et par barge, pour autant qu'il reste de l'eau dans les rivières par ailleurs, ou dans les fleuves, finit par produire quand même des quantités intéressantes. Est-ce que vous avez des données à ce sujet? Merci.
Alors tout à fait, je vais appeler Adalbert au podium sur ce qu'on appelle en anglais les Solidarity Lanes, une tâche particulièrement complexe, mais qui effectivement, comme tu le dis, produit certains effets, même s'il reste clair que l'exportation par le biais de la mer Noire reste essentielle. Adalbert.
Effectivement, et juste pour ajouter à l'utilité de ces corridors de la solidarité, comme on les appelle, il s'agit évidemment, autant les exportations par bateau sont évidemment le meilleur moyen d'exporter des céréales, autant la connectivité en général entre l'Ukraine et l'Union européenne est quelque chose d'extrêmement important aussi pour permettre les importations de certains produits en Ukraine de manière facilitée, ainsi qu'évidemment exporter d'autres denrées, y compris des denrées alimentaires. Les chiffres préliminaires que nous avons pour le mois de juillet sont de 2,6 millions de tonnes de produits agricoles qui ont été exportés d'Ukraine vers l'Union européenne. C'est une augmentation qui est très substantielle. Je rappelle que en avril, 1,3 million de tonnes ont été exportées et ensuite ces quantités ont continué à augmenter, notamment à cause de notre travail sur les corridors de la solidarité. Ce travail continue. Il continue à la fois dans le court terme avec toutes les différentes actions sous le plan d'action que nous entreprenons, mais aussi dans le long terme. Nous avons comme projet d'améliorer les infrastructures, la connectivité en termes d'infrastructures de transport entre l'Union européenne et l'Ukraine. Et nous avons à cet effet amendé récemment notre proposition sur le réseau transeuropéen de transport. Et au besoin, je t'envoie avec plaisir notre matériel de presse là-dessus.
Philippe, tu as une question de suivi.
Volontiers, merci pour l'envoi. Juste une idée à la grosse louche de ces 2,6 millions, combien de millions ou de centaines, ou le chiffre en tout cas, resterait dans l'Union européenne et combien est destiné aux marchés mondiaux?
je pense que je devais revenir vers toi là-dessus. Je ne sais pas si on a forcément ces chiffres-ci. Il s'agit d'une opération qui est fondamentalement commerciale, donc il y a beaucoup de différentes parties prenantes qui sont impliquées, mais on va regarder ça aussi avec Myriam et les collègues qui s'occupent de l'agriculture pour voir si on peut te fournir quelque chose.
De manière générale, il faut cependant préciser, je crois, que il ne s'agit pas d'achat par l'Union européenne pour l'Union européenne. Il s'agit de faciliter la mise en œuvre d'accords commerciaux trouvés par les exportateurs ukrainiens. Donc, ce sont leurs décisions de la destination finale des produits agricoles qui sortent d'Ukraine par voie terrestre et maritime avec l'aide de l'Union européenne. Et comme tu le sais, dans un marché, tu as un principe de vase communicant. Des choses peuvent arriver chez nous, rester chez nous, mais facilitent donc l'exportation de produits agricoles européens vers le reste du monde. Donc, je crois qu'il faut faire attention à trop simplifier les données en ce qui concerne la destination finale des exportations ukrainiennes. Mais quoi qu'il en soit, encore une fois, nous facilitons le fonctionnement du marché. Je t'en prie.
Merci Eric. Excusez-moi, mais on me souffle que en fait le chiffre que je t'ai donné n'est plus à jour, que nous avons un nouveau chiffre sur le mois de juillet et que en fait il s'agit de 2,8 millions de tonnes. Donc ça a encore augmenté par rapport au chiffre préliminaire que j'avais sous la main.
Voilà, de l'information juste à temps, comme on dit dans l'industrie. Ok, merci beaucoup. Je ne vois qu'une seule main levée, donc nous allons passer à Tommaso. Tommaso, you have the floor.
Bonjour, Tommaso Galavati de l'agence de presse de l'Ekranos. C'est seulement une question sur les affaires étrangères, sur le Kosovo et la Serbie, parce que 4 jours avant, vous avez invité le président de la Serbie et du Kosovo à venir à Bruxelles pour parler des tensions bilatérales. Je crois. Et est-ce qu'il y a des nouveautés à ce regard? Parce que j'ai lu quelque part que l'invitation a été acceptée et qu'il y a une date pour parler. Merci.
Merci. Oui, en fait, le haut représentant a invité les deux parties à venir à Bruxelles. Donc, on a accepté l'invitation. L'invitation a été acceptée par le président Vučić et par le premier ministre Kurti. Donc, le 18 août, nous avons une rencontre à Bruxelles avec le haut représentant Borrell, avec l'envoyé spécial de l'Union européenne Miroslav Lajčák et les deux partenaires de Serbie et de Kosovo pour continuer le dialogue entre Pristina et Belgrade.
Merci beaucoup. Y a-t-il d'autres questions affaires étrangères pour Peter? Je t'en prie, Christian.
Ça peut paraître stupide, mais est-ce que les deux vont se parler ou est-ce qu'ils seront chacun dans une salle et M. Borrell fera le go-between? Parce que les relations entre les deux sont assez tendues en ce moment.
Merci, Christian. J'espère qu'on va avoir une rencontre conjointe.
Merci. Je veux bien pousser sur le bouton ou vous le poussez pour moi. Merci. D'autres questions sur le sujet? Ekrem, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Eric. I just earlier asked about war crimes and Putin, and now about the meeting of 18, the visit of Mr. Vučić and Kurti. I would like to ask Peter, has ever Mr. Borrell and Lajčák has asked Mr. Vučić about the Interpol arrest warrant that the EU judges and prosecutors from the court in Jakova from Kosovo have issued in 2017 for his former SNS member and member of parliament, Mr. Momir Stojanovic. In all those meetings, has the two gentlemen made that request? And if not, are they going to ask him to extradite to EU judges Eulex in Court of Jakova Mr. Stojanovic, wanted by Interpol since 5 years ago?
Peter.
Thank you, Ekrem. The aim of the upcoming meeting on the 18th of August in Brussels is to get together in Brussels and to move the dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade forward. This is something that is very much needed at the highest level. We haven't had such meetings for some time. I'm not going to preempt and speculate now everything that might be raised or that will be raised. But when it comes to issues related to the rule of law, international prosecution or dealing with the issues from the past, this is being tackled at appropriate levels at appropriate time with our partners both in Kosovo and in Serbia.
Okay, thank you very much. Ekrem, follow-up. I think that Peter has said what he had to say on the issue. But go ahead.
No, I love very much Peter, but Peter tried to answer my second part of the question, so if I can recall my first half of the question, has Mr. Lajčák and Mr. Borrell, in their meeting with Mr. Vučić, here and there, asked ever or told ever about Mr. Momir Stojanovic?
Nope. Was not asked.
Go ahead.
Well, I addressed the first part of your question in the second part of my answer, and in addition, I can only say that we usually never disclose the details of the conversations between the partners, and everything that we feel we need to say about the content of those meetings is usually issued after, either in the press release or in any other form of the press readout, in the remarks by High Representative or EUSR Lajčák. So I can only say that the concrete specific issue you are asking about, related to this, I can only say that all the issues related to the rule of law, persecution, war crimes, reconciliation, everything that has been happening in the past and is casting the shadow on the relations between Belgrade and Pristina is being tackled continuously at an appropriate time and at appropriate level.
Ekrem, it seems either you cut yourself off or we inadvertently cut you off. No, and so I'm told we didn't do anything. So I see you have your hand raised again. One last follow-up.
I'm sorry, but it's not who elects a right-wing charged by NGO in Serbia of war crimes as the second man of Serbian parliament. So I have to ask the question, what's the position of the European Commission and especially Mr. Bocel about this deputy spokesperson of the Serbian parliament? And in light of Mr. Vučić was going to be here on 18th.
Again, I'm not sure if I really understood the question, but I can only repeat that the position of the European Union is very clear when it comes to the issues related to the past, when it comes to the allegations, suspicions of atrocities, violations, crimes, war crimes, etc., etc., there are processes underway, and the European Union and its member states are watching very closely how the issues are being dealt with by the appropriate authorities, judicial authorities both in Kosovo or the international authorities or authorities with competence to deal with it. So this is something which is very important. The accountability, the impunity and reconciliation, dealing with the sins or with the issues from the past is something that is constantly high on our agenda, and both parties are very well aware of this, and we continue repeating the need to deal with all those issues which have been not solved yet or which still are being open and are being dealt with.
Thank you. Nicola, is it also on the talks between Kosovo and Serbia?
Hello. Hi, Eric. Hi, Peter. I just want to ask, Peter, what do you mean by you want to gather Vučić and Kurti in Brussels? You said you want to move forward the dialogue. What do you mean by that? I mean, if you remember the last time when they tried to meet, there was a debacle, as it was explained. Even the actors of the meeting said it was debacle because they couldn't agree on anything. We see now that they don't agree on anything again. The positions are totally divided. What can we expect from that meeting, remembering the last one? What will it happen if it proves that the positions of two sides are so wide apart that it cannot be moved any closer? So what's the aim of this meeting?
Peter. Thank you. Well, we are not in the business of dealing with adjectives, but we are working as much as we can in our role as the facilitator of the dialogue. Of course, the outcome of each round of the negotiations, be it at the chief negotiator level or at the highest level, the outcome very much depends on the ability of the parties to agree. And this is the case also of the upcoming meeting. But hey, we have an agreement. They agreed on the date and they agreed on the time. So they are coming to Brussels on the 18th. So apparently there is already one small agreement, which is very important, because this agreement on the time and place brings us to another opportunity to try to move all the other issues forward, to move the dialogue forward, because the dialogue is a very important element on the path to the EU for both Kosovo and Serbia. And only by moving in the dialogue, you can move also on the EU path. So we expect that both sides will accept it and that they will be able to agree on whatever will be then discussed within the agenda of the meeting. And again, I'm not going to preempt what will be the outcome. Very important step is already now that they are both coming to Brussels to discuss with High Representative, with EU Special Representative Lajčák as well, how to move forward and how to prevent situations that we have seen in the past, situation of stagnation, of tensions, of not solving the open issues, because only by discussing and negotiating you can solve and close all the open issues that are dragging both sides and their people down. They are not beneficial. They are not benefiting anyone. If there is no progress, if there is no movement, people are not benefiting from it.
Ekrem, you've asked for the floor again.
Yes, I would like Peter to help me about how should I understand the word comprehensive agreement. If I try to explain. In my understanding, a comprehensive agreement is that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. That's how I understand it. What has happened since 2011, we had one agreement and tried to implement it, and another one and trying to implement it. But as we stand now, Kosovo understands the word comprehensive, and that includes me, that nothing will be agreed until everything is agreed. The thing is here. Serbia might get that association, but Kosovo will not get that recognition it wants, because Mr. Vučić says, like, every day, I will not recognize Kosovo. And if I'm allowed to recall his February last year's sentence, that I quote, I would rather put my head on the stump than recognize Kosovo. So, who can speak here about comprehensive agreement? Who?
Thank you, Ekrem.
Thank you, Ekrem. Yeah, a lot of aspects, but I think we've been discussing this for the last, I think, almost 10 years since the EU facilitated dialogue started. The main aim of the EU facilitated dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade, as set out by the relevant agreements endorsed by the UN, is final, legally binding, comprehensive agreement. The definition of comprehensive agreement depends on the agreement of both sides. We are the facilitator, but they are the actors. And regarding all the other things you enumerated, a lot of things have been already said, maybe too many things. But now it's time to start to do things. And it's actually the dialogue which is the platform to get things done. And this is what we are here for, and this is what we are trying to do, to help both parties to get things done. The overall aim has been defined, legally binding, final comprehensive agreement on the normalization of relations between the two of them. They are the main actors to negotiate how this will look like and with what this will be filled with.
Ekrem, I will give you one last question and then I will ask you to continue on this bilaterally, because you're the only one asking questions on this issue at this point in time. So one last question, please.
With Peter when he says, because the word comprehensive in that sentence, legal binding, is not invented by Belgrade, either Pristina, is invented by that very same house, not them.
I think, well, that's not a question, and I think that Peter has actually said what we believe the word comprehensive should mean, which is basically what the parties will agree on what comprehensive means. But I don't think that you have asked another question there. Okay, thank you very much. I believe that I missed Bartosz, who had wanted to raise his hand. I apologize. Bartosz, if you're still with us, you wanted to ask a question on another subject.
Yes, hello. This is Bartosz Brzezinski calling from Political Europe. I wanted to ask a question about the pesticide targets for member states. I know that several countries have already received calculations from the European Commission based on the methodology proposed in the Sustainable Use of Pesticides regulation. And I wanted to know what countries have received and if we can know what targets.
Yeah, Bartosz, thanks. That's a very detailed question, and Adalbert will come back to you bilaterally with the specific information that you're looking for. Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, Alex Callier again for Feature Story News. I had a question about the JCPOA negotiations in Vienna. AFP citing an EU official saying progress was made and that substantial guarantees have also been made. Could you give us a sense of what progress has been made and what kind of guarantees have been given? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I should have asked for the first questions before letting you go, Peter.
No problem. Well, thank you. What I can say at this stage, without commenting on what has been reported by various officials from various sides, is that the discussions and consultations in Vienna continue as of yesterday. The main aim is to see in how far it is possible to reach an understanding and agreement on the latest proposal by High Representative Borrell as the coordinator of the JCPOA. What is going on in Vienna is mostly proximity talks. So the EU facilitator, EU coordinator and his team are facilitating the proximity talks between the US and Iranian chief negotiators. And if there is a need to consult on technical issues, of course, I mean, the team is in touch also with other participants, but this is the main action which is happening in Vienna. So we hope that it will be possible eventually to agree, because as High Representative has said, until now in this almost 2 years of intense negotiations, the space for further compromise, for further agreement has been exhausted. That's why he came up with a new text, a new proposal, and as High Representative has said in Phnom Penh in Cambodia recently, he remains relatively optimistic that it could be possible. But again, the EU here, he as the coordinator of the JCPOA is the coordinator, but it's up to the parties to eventually either agree or disagree.
Christian.
Oui, je profite de la présence de Peter pour revenir sur le JCPOA. Si j'ai bien compris, la proposition de M. Borrell, elle est à prendre ou à laisser. Il a dit qu'il n'y aurait pas de marge de manœuvre pour faire de nouveaux compromis ni rien. Donc c'est ou ça, ou c'est la fin.
Bien sûr, on a dit que l'espace pour les négociations, pour le compromis additionnel est déjà épuisé. Et nous sommes déjà épuisés de ce processus. Donc, c'est le temps pour le dernier effort pour discuter la récente proposition des représentants et prendre les décisions clés et décisives politiques dans les capitales des pays qui sont participants de JCPOA. Donc le processus est en cours maintenant à Vienne et nous espérons qu'on va voir les résultats très tôt.
Ok. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui, Christian?
Oui, bon, elle est très simple, hein, mais je voulais revenir tout à l'heure sur la question des pesticides. En fait, on a, c'est pas pour Peter, hein, la Belgique vient d'ordonner le retrait de 10 crème glacée Häagen-Dazs parce qu'il y avait un problème avec un agent cancérigène provenant d'un lot de vanille d'un des fournisseurs de cette société. Ma question est toute simple, est-ce qu'on a activé le système d'alerte européen? Parce que ce que j'ai compris, c'est que le groupe américain qui possède Häagen-Dazs procède à des retraits, mais ponctuels. Donc en juillet, il y a eu des retraits en France. Là, maintenant, la Belgique en fait retirer 10. Est-ce qu'on a une alerte générale ou pas encore?
Ça, c'est c'est protection de la santé des consommateurs, c'est Adalbert, mais il va devoir vérifier. Il reviendra vers toi. Bien, je vais maintenant clore ce rendez-vous de midi. Nous restons à votre disposition, bien entendu, en bilatéral pour d'autres questions. La semaine prochaine, vous aurez le plaisir d'avoir les midday le mardi et le jeudi. Et celui du mardi sera présidé par Peter, ce qui, étant donné le nombre de questions sur les affaires extérieures, est certainement tout à fait adéquate. Et je dis Ariana, ce qui, au vu des questions sur le MFA, il est tout autant. Pour ma part, je prends quelques semaines de congé. Je vous souhaite un excellent mois d'août et vous retrouverez à la fin du mois. Merci beaucoup.